to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the episodes The Sounds of Drums and The Last of the Time Lords, written by Russell T Davies and is directed by Colin Teagan. We'll also be tackling the audio. This is an audiobook of a novel, The Story of Martha, written by Dan Bennett. This acts like a conclusion to Series 3. It ties heavily with a lot of stories mentioning events that have happened in 42 and the Lazarus Experiment. So it does tie in with that, and obviously Utopia. For those of you wondering, this video will not be tackling Utopia because for reasons which I've explained in my Utopia video, I've separated them. But I would like to let you know that in my head, I do consider this a three-parter. So, yeah, I do consider this a three-parter. I'm just separating them for reasons which I talked about in Utopia. I wanted to talk about that one on its own mainly, so I separated that into that. This story establishes John Sims' master after Derek Jacobi regenerated into this incarnation at the end of Utopia. So this is John Sims' first real outing in these two episodes, and it works as, obviously it works as the conclusion to Series 3, because it is the conclusion to Series 3. I don't know where I was going with that point. It's also the conclusion to Martha Jones as regular companion, and this story also acts as a crossover between Doctor Who and its sister show Torchwood, a spin-off featuring Captain Jack Harkness, to which he returns in Utopia and these two episodes. So that's really cool and really interesting. The story of Martha, this is an abridged audiobook of the novel, and the novel is quite interesting. It actually was released around about the end of the Donna Noble era. It came out actually a year after Freema Armand left the role. In fact, this audio book is read by her. But this isn't the main version of it, because the story of Martha, the novel, is actually an anthology in which half of the story takes place between the two episodes in this story, and it's about her basically telling her stories to characters. And in the book, there are 4 shorter stories in the narrative dealing with her stories of her and the Doctor. In the audiobook, those segments have been removed, and you can get them separately, but only on downloads. And they obviously, because they're flashbacks, they chronologically take place before. This only tells the story that happens chronologically between the events of The Sounds of Drums and Last of the Time Lords. So, in a way, I'm kind of grateful they did that, because it makes my job at fitting these in chronological ordering 10 times easier. I will state, however, I won't be talking about this story too much, despite it being 2.5 hours long. It's mainly just a plot that ties into this, and I really want to just talk about the televised stories. Not to say that it's bad or good, but I mainly want to focus on this. Now, something which caught me by surprise is that this is actually a very unpopular Doctor Who story, with a lot of people criticising the way the Doctor is portrayed in certain scenes, and the portrayal of the Master. Whether it's John Sims' quirkiness or Russell T Davies's retconning of the Master to do with the drum beats, it varies to people to people. Now that is a fair enough opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. But I have to disagree. In my opinion, this is by far the best series finale of the entire revived series of Doctor Who. I know I'm probably giving it away, but yeah, there you go. So this is the vanilla release. And yes, I've talked about the cover during my video in Utopia, but I thought I'd talk about them again because it just looks cool, I don't know. So there you go with John Sims with his laser screwdriver, because who needs Sonic? And with it, of course, I have my own DVD cover, which again, I've shown to you before, but I want to show it again because I have a huge ego, I guess. So anyway, let's put these together. 1, 2, 3. There you go. So this is the cover that was made by Christopher Doctor Who DVD covers, which you can find online easily. I printed my copy out and it looks stunning. I like the faces of the Doctor and the Master here. It is a tribute, a reference to the cover of The Unearthly Child's VHS cover, in which the Doctor and Susan are doing a similar thing. And I also believe that is a reference to a Queen album. So there you go. You got the Chocolate there, which this story, the Chocolate are pretty messed up. There you go. So in my opinion, the official title of the story is Last of the Time Lords, if anyone's interested. Here is the spine, if anyone's interested. And here is the back, and we've got the Archangel Network symbol there. I wonder if there's like a hidden Medan or something, because I don't know. I just realised it looks like an angel. I just now noticed that. I noticed it's the A, but I've only now noticed it looks like an angel. So it's pretty cool. You got post pictures there. So anyway, so that's the covers. I've talked about everything that's building up to this, and already around about 7 minutes have been talking about this, and I haven't gotten into the story yet. So let's just delve right in. The story takes place right after Utopia. The Doctor, Martha and Jack have used Jack's vortex manipulator to return to modern day Earth, and the Doctor's like, right, I need to find the Master. Last time we met, I fused the coordinates so he can only appear in the year 1 trillion and now. And so they've got to look out for him, and the Doctor's like, I'll know as soon as I see him, this new Master. But Martha, as noted in at the end of Utopia, she recognises that voice. She realises that she knows this person. As the Doctor notices that some people are tapping to the same kind of drum beat the Master's got in his head, and he looks up onto the TV and he sees a man who has a similar voice to something he recognises. The voice that taunted him at the end of Utopia, the Master, now Prime Minister of Great Britain. The Master's Prime Minister. And the pre-credit sequence is probably one of the weaker ones of the revived series, oddly enough, but I still think it's a very good setup. I love the setup of the Master and his wife, the Master being Prime Minister, and you see like right off the bat he has had power. Saxon has been mentioned in previous stories, in The Runaway Bride, in 42, and the Lazarus Experiment. We've also had the poster Vote Saxon in episodes like Smith and Jones, and in Torchwood episodes such as Captain Jack Harkness. So this Easter egg, this series arc building has been very subtly in most episodes tying into this. So that's kind of cool. And so the Doctor is trying to work out how the hell does the Master do this? That shouldn't be possible. He should have literally just arrived. But somehow, maybe a leeway, a few months either way, but the Master shouldn't have this much power, this amount of control over the world. It seems like he's integrated himself into society, and he has created this network, the Archangel Network, I think it was 17, no, it's more than 17 satellites surrounding the globe, which has actually been given a secret hypnotic suggestion allowing the Master to take control. And the master being the prime minister, but also being, somebody who enjoys his own freedom, basically takes the mick out of politics and the policies of Britain at the time. Probably one of the greatest scenes, which sets up this master, which uses the scene to basically establish who John Sim's master is. He goes to the cabinet and he starts throwing the books around and almost is giggly. What's the word I'm looking for? He's very energetic, and he pulls these funny faces and he has these really funny moments, but he also can be intimidating when he needs to. Sometimes his quirkiness can be an issue, but I feel like Russell T Davies knows when to reel him in when he needs to, and it's especially a bit like how that scene ends when the master's like he has a go at them because he realizes that all of these people are greedy gits, and so he just puts on this mask and he basically tells people, it's like, this is the mask for the gas. What gas? This gas. And then these devices come out and like gas the entire room, and it's like, you're insane, and the master just gives 2 thumbs up like that. I'm sure that's like a meme or something, and that just sets up his master. That puts you right into this master's thought process. He does not care about human life. He just cares about basically putting what he thinks is right and putting himself as in power because he thinks he knows what he wants, and he's just having fun along the way. Right after this scene, we also get introduced again to this tapping beat, which was introduced in Utopia, and this is something which actually a lot of people have been criticised this story. For you see, the Masters has been sort of retconned by this point. It was kind of established in Utopia, but not people seem to have an issue with it. But here it kind of establishes it a bit more, and it's here that people have an issue with it, and that is the retconning of the Master's motivation. For you see, in the classic series, the Master was basically a would-be dictator. He basically is trying his best to just kill his way to the top and get as much power as possible, because when he has power, then he's untouchable, he's unstoppable, and he can do whatever he wants, including getting revenge on people he hates most, like the Doctor. And so, that was the Master's whole deal. I am the Master and you will obey me. But here, Russell T Davies has kind of changed that. Now, the Master has been established as having this drum beat in his head. This has occurred when, as a child, he was forced to look into the untempered schism, the time vortex out of any sort of filter, and which has made the Master mad, and hear this drum beat that gets louder and louder and louder in his head. This would be a storyline that will continue on in the Russell T Davies era, but then quickly gets forgotten during the Stephen Moffat and the Chris Chibnall era, in a sense. I mean, they do kind of reference it, but it's never brought up again that the Master is like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over the drum beat. But here, we get a lot of scenes of the Master kind of being obsessive about this drum beat. Like just before he kills people, he asks them, can you hear it, the drum, the never-ending drums? When will it stop? Only when the drumming stops will I stop, kind of thing. And the story heavily implies that his villainy is connected to the fact that it's because of the drum beat and less to do with the fact that he's a would-be dictator. I can understand that issue, but I don't feel like it's an issue here. And I think what mainly sells it is John Sim really nails down this obsessive version of the Master. Kind of retconning it, so it's kind of like all the Masters have been this trouble. Might have, overdone it a bit on Russell T Davies' point of view. However, I feel like John Sim, anyway, plays this obsessive Master perfectly and really shows him as an actor just really being really quirky and just a lot of fun. This story he just is just like in complete control over everything. This story also, despite retconning the Master in a sense, John Sims is the Master. There's no doubt about it. He does what the Master always does. Disguises and influences and kind of disguises as he's basically set him up as this really likeable prime minister that everybody can get into. And there's even a scene in which Martha's like, I was going to vote for him, and Jack's like, yeah, me too. And when the doctor's like, why? What was his policies? I don't know. He just seemed kind of nice. By the way, I don't know if you realise this, but Russell T Davies hates politicians. This is like the third or fifth story in a row where we have politicians as villains. I mean, he did it with the Slovene. He did it with what's his name from The Long Game, and the businessman. And yeah, it just goes to show Russell T Davies does not like politics and kind of believes that, like, you know, the government are the villains in a sense. Like, that's Russell T Davies is a very political figure, and this story does show it, especially in that scene where the Master basically outs out everybody for switching sides because they saw him being the more popular choice for Prime Minister, and that is just really heavily in. And it's also here that during the scene, the Master gives this this interview where he explains that he's been in contact with an alien race who he introduces and these ball things with these children-like voices, and he calls them the Chocolate, which the doctor's like, there's no such thing, I don't know what they are. That's one of the mysteries of this story. But then the Master also talks about, like, this world needs this and this and this, and every medical student, basically implying that the Master knows about Martha's history. And probably in one of the most corniest scenes, something ripped right out of a 60s Batman episode, but again, I just absolutely love it. The Doctor turns around the TV to find a ticking bomb, which is perfectly timed for the Master to give that speech, and a little bit of time for that all our characters can just leave the house, run outside the house, just in the nick of time so that it will explode just outside. Like, the amount of planning that is to do with that is excruciatingly funny. It's unintentionally funny. Or maybe it was purposely funny, I don't know. But because of this, it basically sets up the idea that the Master knows who Martha is. And Martha calls her family, only for each of them to get arrested one after another. And basically, setting up Martha for a trap to go and rescue her family. And the Doctor's like, it's a trap. But Martha's just like, I know, but I don't care. And it's kind of here that her relationship between the Doctor starts breaking, as she wouldn't be in this situation. Her parents, her family wouldn't have gotten arrested and kind of been tortured if it wasn't for the fact that the Doctor came into her life. And so you kind of get to see that relationship between them crumble. Not to say that they're not still good friends, but you can get the feeling that there are breakages here. I'm going to have to skip over a few scenes because we're like 20 minutes into this. Like, I didn't mention the woman that goes interviews Lucy Saxon, or Lucy Saxon herself, but anyway. Probably one of the greatest scenes in the story is when Dr. Jack and Martha are on the run, they find this abandoned warehouse where they've basically decided to set camp, and they talk to the Doctor about his history, about the Master and how the Time Lord Society, and it's here where he basically describes Gallifrey. It's here where we get introduced to This is Gallifrey, the theme song, the leitmotif of Gallifrey itself. It's also here that in the revived series we get our first look of Gallifrey with the glass dome and the Time Lords that still have those ridiculous, I don't know what the hell they are. They're not like, it's not like a crown. You know what I mean? Like those shoulder pad things, and has like that circular thing in the background. You know what I'm on about, yeah. And so this is a very memorable moment. A lot of people cite this as like one of their like favourite moments, which is really funny because this story, as I've stated, is unpopular as we get this really gorgeous imagery of Gallifrey, and the music having this really makes you feel nostalgic for something. You know, we've never seen Gallifrey like this before. We've never even seen a Gallifreyan outside of the Citadel before. We never even got an image of the Citadel out before. So that's really interesting. And so this all leads up to a flashback with the Master as a kid, looking into the Untitled Schism, and it's here where the Doctor states it's like, oh, the Master went mad because he looked into the Untitled Schism. Again, this is a controversial aspect to the story, but I feel like it works here. Whether it works in other stories, we'll have to wait and see when we talk about the end of time. But yeah, and so Doctor basically makes these devices that makes them sort of invisible, but not really, and they get onto what's it called? The big ship, the flying ship. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's like one of the most important ships in Doctor Who, apart from the TARDIS, really, because it's one of the few ones that appear. The Crucible. It's the Crucible makes its first appearance in Doctor Who canon here, as this is where the interaction between the Troclophane is going to appear, and so the Doctor and Martha and Jack get onto the Crucible after Martha sees her family basically being sent to prison, and they find the TARDIS and find out that the Master has cannibalized the TARDIS to create a paradox machine, which is just techno mumble jumble, but the David Tennant absolutely nails it and makes you feel really intimidating. All the plans seem to fail as the president of the United States gets murdered by the Troclophane, and the Master basically announces that, you know, he is the Master, and he tells the Troclophane to kill 1/10 of the population after he uses his sonic device. As he mentions, he gets the technology from Professor Lazarus and uses the Doctor's hand, which we've seen previously in Utopia and the Torchwood, to break into the Doctor's DNA and physically age him by like 1,000 years, turning the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, into an old man. And the Sound of Drum ends with basically the Doctor whispering something in Martha's ear as she gets teleported away with the device that makes her semi-invisible, and she is basically free to roam around Earth, whilst the Doctor and Jack are trapped as people are just getting murdered around the planet. Everybody is just dying on every planet. 1/10 of the population is being extinguished, devastated. And so that's the end of that story, which then leads into the story of Martha. Now, the events between these two episodes is called The Year That Never Was, and this story is basically set during the year that never was. She's Martha basically go from her first few weeks in the year that never was, when she's in UK and she's trying to get transport to France. She then goes to China. Was it Japan? I think it was China, actually. And it basically just details her meeting these characters along the way. As I've stated, in this story, she does tell characters stories, but because this story neglects the other stories in the novel, in the adaptation of the novel, it just means that she kind of mentions that she's told stories to these characters, but we never hear them ourselves, which kind of puts this kind of awkward feeling. But I say, just to finish this little bit off, because we don't have a lot of time, this is really good. This is really good. There's some really dark moments, like one of the first characters Martha interacts with is a 9-year-old girl who witnessed her auntie, being murdered in front of her by a troglodyte, and she doesn't kind of believe it because, you know, she's a kid and she's never seen anybody decimated like that before, and she can't find her mother, and it's been 2 weeks, and so her mother's probably dead as well, and she has to survive on eating old sandwiches, gone off sandwiches, and whatever she can find in broken down shops and people's houses, until meets up with Martha, and Martha kind of looks after her for a few days, whilst Martha gets chased around by people. Martha also meets this French guy who kind of she befriends, and then she also gets trapped in a workforce in China after her device goes on the blink. In fact, all devices in this local area goes off, and it turns out there is actually an alien invasion that was taking place before the Master used a paradox machine, and so but they feel like they're going to destroy humanity in a vain hope of basically just putting the human race out of their misery, because life here is just absolutely horrible. But Martha, along with a friend that character she befriends during the story, stops them, and the story ends actually tying into this story. So it does kind of feel like this story is kind of missing a missing episode in that. So for anybody who calls this the Master Trilogy, which if you don't know the history of, you watch my video of Utopia for that. There's a fourth story in this, technically making it a 4-parter. So, sorry, I just, yeah. Anyway, to the Last of the Time Lords. Of course, it takes place after this event, the year that never was. Although at the moment it's not called that. It takes place a year after the Sound of Drums. Martha has been on the earth for a year, and she's basically has become this kind of soldier character, and she's become a sort of myth. She meets up with a character, Tommy Milligan, and he's played by Thomas Ellis, Lucifer. Like, this series has Andrew Garfield before he was Spider-Man, and now Thomas Ellis before he was Lucifer. How many more superhero actors are in this? We will never know, because there will always be more being announced. Sorry, I don't know what that was. And all these myths about Martha becoming this person who can kill the Master. She can be the one to do it, and she goes around spreading these stories of hope and all of these stories about which we've seen in the story of Martha. But we also learn that she's been trying to build up this device, a weapon created by Unit and Torchwood, in a vain hope of killing a Time Lord whenever they need to. Yeah, I'll talk about that later. And in terms of plot, that's really like the main plot. But the story does a lot of building up tension and building up character. Martha meets up with this old woman who is like a science expert. She helps Martha read this message of the Master. Basically, is like taunting her, and in taunting her, he ages the Doctor again. By the way, the Master controlling the older Doctor is some of the funniest scenes I have ever seen. My favourite moment there's a bit where the doctor's trying to tell the master something, and the master's just like, nope, and he just pushes the wheelchair and goes off dancing. That is like my favourite moment in this story, is that. It's just, it cracks me up every time. But anyway, the master ages the doctor again, and he becomes this really weird dwarf thing with a giant head, and the doctor gets locked up in his bird cage. It's a very weird effect. The effect itself doesn't really hold up, but the idea that the doctor is just so aged now, thanks to what the master's done to him, that he's basically become useless, is very poignant into the story. It makes you really, it's like, right, it feels like there is no hope. How are the doctor and Martha going to stop the master when the doctor is now at this state? Like, what are we going to do? And so, like, it puts all of the tension on. We also get one of the most infamous scenes, and probably the one that really is like messes me up, and that is the revelation of the chocolate. Martha, with the help of the scientist woman and Tommy Milligan, they actually capture a chocolate, open it up to discover what it actually is. It is the humans that we previously seen in Utopia. But no, wait, it gets better. Do you remember that kid that I said that was cast because he won a competition in Blue Peter? The chocolate that they find, the one that they open the case in, is that kid. And he basically tells them the story of how the master helped them get to Utopia, but there was nothing there. The Utopia project failed, and reality was just collapsing anyway, and there was no hope. And it turned these humans insane. They started cannibalizing themselves. They started regressing their minds back to children, and then they came and turned themselves into Troclophane, to which the master promised them to come back to Earth, where they come back and just murdered their entire ancestry because it's fun. Like, sometimes in Torchwood, I feel like some elements, it's like, like if you take away some of the swearing and stuff, you could have easily put it in Doctor Who. I feel like this aspect could easily be a Torchwood episode. Like, an episode of Torchwood dealing around the Troclophane would be incredible. That is a missed opportunity right there. And that aspect is such messed up that I feel like it should have been more in Torchwood than Doctor Who. But as somebody who likes just disturbing, messed up stuff like that, I'm kind of glad that it was in Doctor Who. Like, kids can handle stuff like that. And that scene ends with Milligan shooting this character who we've learned in the previous episode is a kid, shoots him in the face. I don't know why, but that scene just is really messed up. It's just so messed up. And so Tommy Milligan helps Martha get to a specific location, to which she describes as where the last ingredient for this gun is. And it's revealed that this old woman that's been helping them, her son was actually captured by the master, and she actually betrays Martha in the vain hope of getting her son back. And so the master knows of Martha's location, tracks her down, destroys the gun, and takes her back to the Valiant. Sorry, it's not the Crucible, it's the Valiant. I can't remember what I said. The ship is called the Valiant. And basically plans on executing her in front of the Doctor, and uses this time clock to set up all the bombs so that all these nuclear warheads the Earth has, the Master has been creating for a year, which will shoot out and destroy the entire galaxy, and he will be the conqueror, opening the door for a new dawn of Time Lord Empire, with the Master as the Emperor. But Martha starts laughing Why? Because Martha is amused by the fact the Master would think that the Doctor would tell her to make a weapon to kill him. No, that wasn't what the Doctor was whispering. The Doctor whispered to use the countdown, as Martha has been going around the world telling the stories about the Doctor, and she gives them all one instruction. When there's the countdown to release all of these nukes, think about one thing. Think about the Doctor. Give him the hope that the Doctor will save them. The Master laughs. It's like, that's what you've done. Just give him hope. But then connect their brains to the Archangel network, which you have done. What? And the Doctor basically reveals that he has tapped into the Archangel network and has this kind of superpower where he then de-ages back into his normal form. This is a scene which gets heavily criticised for Jesusifying the Doctor. Now, Russell T Davies, I feel like, does have an issue of Jesusifying the Doctor. For those of you who don't know, Jesusifying is a term in which a character becomes basically Jesus, and basically conveniently gains these powers which makes them just fix everything with no consequences really, and like they're so good but they're also so powerful kind of thing. And I understand that. I do understand if you have that issue, but I feel like the desperation in this story and the description, the little detail that the Doctor has stated, like, it's not just the fact that the people are hoping and they're connected to the Archangel network, but it's the fact that the Doctor has tapped himself into the Archangel network, using everyone's psychic energy, which is already something that's been established in Doctor Who for years. That psychic energy is this real thing. You put people having the same emotions at the same time, and you can use it as an energy source. And the Doctor has used that to basically rejuvenate himself. So I think in the context it works. I can understand, like, it does feel like a convenient twist at the end, but canonically I think it does work, and I feel like the story has so much desperation from the Doctor's point of view that when this scene plays out, it is fist punching, like, in the air. It's like, yes! Come on! We're going to save the day. The Doctor's about to kick motherfucking ass. So the Doctor de-ages and kind of has these, like, Super Saiyan powers as he pushes the Master's weapon away from his hand. Yeah, it's basically the Doctor goes Super Saiyan. For any Dragon Ball Z fans, that must have been sort of cool. We have this little action scene on the Earth as all strange creatures, basically the action leitmotif, the theme song, the Doctor's theme song throughout this series, which wasn't supposed to be in the majority of stories, but it was so popular during the trailers that Russell T Davies basically asked Murray Gold to use it more often, and that all, like, levitates this episode. That ending is just so jam-packed with awesomeness that it's like, it baffles me that people don't like this. Like, I know people, like, you know, you can have your opinions, you know, it's, you know, you're entitled to it, but man, that ending always gets me pumped. And so the Doctor, Jack being freed, destroys the cannibalized machine, and time gets reversed so that the year that never was, and time goes back so that, apart from everybody in the Valiant, time has reversed just after the assassination of the president. The Master gets shot by Lucy. I don't know if it's implied that, like, she had grown sick of the Master, or whether she was hypnotized to do so. This story does kind of imply both ways. She's all, and in the back, she's just a really weird character. You just see her in the background because kind of going, it's really bizarre. there's also hints as well that she has kind of become disgusted. We see her having like a cut on her eye at one point, and when everybody's chanting for the Doctor to revive him, she also starts chanting the Doctor as well. So and later on episodes will imply that she becomes a good guy after this, because we see her again in the end of time. And she shoots the Master and he refuses to regenerate, and the Doctor basically burns his body. The reason why the Doctor burns his body won't actually be explained until 4 years later in the Doctor Who episode, The Impossible Astronaut. So that's an interesting detail. We see a ring getting picked up by a female hand. As the Master, you can hear the Master laughing, implying that the Master can be resurrected from this. There is a chance he can return, which of course he does. And then this leads into the finale, in which Martha has been she's been reunited with her family after they've just gone through an entire year of being tortured and tormented by the Master. And Martha decides she's not going to travel with the Doctor anymore. She's going to stay, making Martha one of the few characters that chooses to not only leave the Doctor, but leaves him in her own time period. I believe really only Sarah Jane has done that before. There has been quite a few, but it's rare in the revived series anyway. And the scene just, oh man, like Martha Jones, as I've stated multiple times, is one of my favourite companions. She might even be my favourite companion of the revived series. But man, that scene always impacts me. I mean, yes, you get the scene where she's basically detailing, it's like she's got people to care for now. I love the bit where she walks in and the Doctor thinks, right, let's go, and then the Doctor calms down. He realises, without Martha saying, right, I'm actually staying here, the Doctor's like, okay, no, I'm fine. Yes. He stops that quirkiness, the David Tennant quirkiness, which is, he's a very energetic Doctor, and he just stops and he pauses to comfort Martha for her decision to leave, and also sadness as well, that, he really befriended Martha, and she walks out the door detailing this, but then she goes back, basically finishing up her storyline between her relationship with the Doctor, because throughout Series 3, we have had multiple times where it's hinted that she is in love with the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't really see her like that, because he has been obsessed with Rose Tyler. And so we get Martha technically gets two endings. She leaves and she comes back, basically detailing how she had this friend who was pining over this man, but never saw her like that. And Martha's told her to get out. And now, she's in a similar position, so this is her getting out. But they're still friends. Martha even gives him his phone, which she'll use to contact him in later episodes. So that's going to be awesome to watch. And our story ends with the Doctor on the TARDIS by himself, when suddenly he presses a button. Remember that he presses the button, and something happens with the TARDIS, which kind of causes every mayhem, and a giant ship crashes through the hull of the TARDIS, and the Doctor picks up this ring, and it says Titanic. What? And there you go. That is our stories of the Master trilogy and the story of Martha. Overall, in my opinion, it is my favourite series finale of the revived era, in which, they do the whole, we're building up to the finale. It's energetic, it's jam-packed, it's perfectly paced, it's perfectly directed, it's perfectly, just so many great moments, and I think thematically it all works together, it all ties in together, and it's just so much I love. And I must be honest, I've only really talked about maybe 1/4 of what I wanted to talk about, because otherwise I would have to we'll have to make an entire 4-season video series talking about why I love these 3 episodes in these stories. I mean, I had to separate Utopia just so I could talk about everything I wanted in that. Like, this video was already going to be a bit long, so yeah. And I also say check out the story of Martha. The Doctor's not in it, but Martha's like the main character, and to have the audiobook read by Freema Agmund really puts this in my head that this is canon. And so yeah, go check these out. I personally really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people don't like the series 3 finale, the Master Trilogy, or at least they don't like the Sound of Drums and mainly Last of the Time Lords. Everybody seems to like Utopia. It's just these 2 stories with the John Sim Master that people have issue with. And if you're one of those people, that's fair enough. There's some really great criticisms against them. It's just me personally, I can't help but just fall in love with them. So there you go. That is the conclusion to the Master Trilogy and also the story of Martha. So join me next time where the Doctor will be meeting the Doctor. Oh yes, we'll get our first multi-Doctor story in the revived series. So join me next time for Time Crash, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!